we are going to be felting this adorable cartoon dog, a little Jack Russell. Hello and welcome to my channel. If you don't know me already, I'm Lissy, short for Felicity, and I teach people just like you to create 2D pictures to be proud of. Now, this cartoon dog is inspired by the wonderful Sandy over at the Felt Hub. She has this amazing 3D tutorial of this Jack Russell over on her channel. So if you haven't already checked out her page, I'll put a link in the description below. But in today's session, we're going to be felting this 2D version, and I'll show you step by step how to create your own adorable cartoon dog. And there's a free template if you want to download it, or you can choose to do it freehand. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to download the template. And without any further ado, let's head over and see what materials we need to get started. Okay, so here we have our materials, the things that we need in order to do our tutorial. So the first thing, we've got our felting wool. So I've just got some simple colours. You can use any colours that you want to for your dog. I've got some white, some tan, and then a little bit of sort of mockery colour, just a little bit lighter than the tan for some shading, and then some black for the facial details. I've also got my felting needle. Now I choose to use a needle holder, but that's completely optional. I've also got a broken needle here, or you can use a pin. This is for our template, which I've got a template which you can use if you want to and print that out. I've also got some scissors to cut it out and a pen as well. And then I've got my background. So this is 100% wool felt, and it's about 1 millimeter thick, the one I'm using today. Got a nice pink colour. And also you'll need a felting mat. So this is something that goes underneath your work that you can felt into. So this could be a foam mat, or if you're brand new, you could just use something like a car sponge, just anything to protect it for your needle to go straight through. And protect your work surface underneath. And when you have all those things, we're ready to get started. So if you want to go and get those now, then you can pause the video and then come back and follow along. So we're going to move our materials to the side because we just want to take our template for now. So just move everything out of the way. So this is just a simple template that we're going to cut around, and then I'll show you how you can mark the details onto your work. So I'm just going to start by cutting around the outline. Now when you're needle felting, everything that you mark with pen on your work will be visible. So I tend to try and come slightly inside when I'm doing an outline, so that then anything outside of where we make our pen mark can be covered with wool. So just be aware when you're cutting out to go slightly in of your lines. Okay, so once we have our template all cut out, we want to think about where we're going to place this onto our background felt. Now, if you're just practicing, then you might just want to use a scrap piece and perhaps do it at the side like this so that you can use the whole piece for something else. Or if you're going to frame it, then you might just want to make sure you've got even space either side. If you're wanting to put it into an embroidery hoop, then you're going to need a little bit more room so that you can actually put it into the hoop. So perhaps just practice by putting it over the top and seeing how much overlap you have around. So I'm just going to position mine about here on my work, and then you can use the rest another time. So this is actually an A4 piece of felt, so half of that is A5, and then you can use the other half for something else. So when you have got it where you want it, then we're just going to mark it. Now, if you want to use pins to hold this in place, it can be a good idea to stop it moving around. I'm just going to use my needle. I'm just going to kind of stab it in the middle and then freehand the rest. Now, my pen that I'm using here is just an erasable pen actually, but there's no reason to use an erasable pen. It's just I've got loads of them and I find them quite easy and they show up okay on wool felt. But you might just want to practice on a little corner to make sure that your pen does show up. That's the most important thing. So then I'm just going to trace around the outline. So I'm just holding my template in place and we're just going to trace all the way around it. Also, this template is completely optional. If you feel like you want to just have a go freehand, then you can just follow along freehand. I'll show you how to kind of place the wool down in shapes if you don't want to use a template. But I know a lot of people prefer to kind of have an outline to follow when they're working. Once we have got our basic outline, just check to make sure that that's shown up okay. And then we can start putting in some of our other details. So for this, you might want to use a broken needle or a pin just to make some holes. And what we're going to do, we're going to make little holes all around the markings that we want to appear onto our wool felts. And then we're going to use our pen to make them show up. So first of all, I'm just going to outline where the legs are going to go. So I'm just going to make some little holes with my needle where I want those to go. Then just use my pen, go through and just make sure that you press on quite firmly so that these are actually going to show up, and also make sure that your outline is still in the same place and that hasn't moved from when you put your outline on. There's no reason why I haven't gone up here, it's just the way I drew it. So just mark your legs however you want them. And when you are doing details like this, it's up to you just how much you want to put on. So I'm going to just mark these basic areas where we can see the legs. And then gently lift to kind of see if you can see them. And if there's any areas where it's not shown up, you can just go back over. So I'm just going to go over those again because I can't see very well in some of these places. Okay, and then once we've got a little bit of an outline, we can just join up those lines. As I say, you can just freehand this, you don't have to use an outline. And then I'm just going to mark this other leg. You can use your ordinary needle for this as well, but you don't want to break it, and it's not really the best thing to be poking it through paper. But sometimes I do anyway. Now, if you want to mark off where the feet are, you can do that too. So I'll just put a couple of little dots across. There are so many different transfer methods, so if there's another one that you prefer to use, then feel free. You can drop it in the comments what your favourite transfer method is. Just going to put a little one on the tail too. Actually, that's not showing up too well. I might just freehand that one. There we go. I'm just going to move my needle now so that I can put in these top details. So I'm going to mark the bottom of the head. and around this little patch. Then I'm just going to mark off the eyes. So for this, I'm just going to kind of do like a little diamond shape. You can just do one dot. Actually, that's I might just do one dot because they're kind of disintegrating under me. There we go. And then the nose. And then lastly, I'm just going to put this little mark across here. Like so. There we go. And don't worry too much if you can't see everything, because once the wool's on, we'll be covering some of these things anyway. And there we have our transfer. So just going to brush off all the little bits of paper that have gone on there now. And then we can move on to the next step. So next we are on to felting our little doggy, and the first thing that we are going to do for this is take our main white colour. So we're going to do the body. So in 2D felting, people do it in lots of different ways. The way I tend to do 2D felting is to use a minimal amount of wool. Some people will use quite a lot of wool and they'll kind of build it up more in a relief and make it kind of a cross between 3D and 2D felting. But when I do 2D felting, it's not very raised from the felt itself, so I use very little wool, which is great because it means you don't have to buy loads of wool. It goes a long way. So when we're working, we just want to tear off tiny little amounts, and we're just going to place this on our work. So you can either fill in the body by just completely covering the whole area. And if you're not using an outline, then this is what I would do. I would just make a kind of oval shape with my wool, and then I would shape it round and then add the legs on top. But because we have actually marked our outline of the legs, I'm just going to follow the outlines that we've made. So we're going to take small amounts of our wool, and we're just going to place this down on our work and then use our needle to just felt that into place. So we just want enough wool that we're going to be covering our lines, and also so that you can't see the background coming through either. So we're just taking tiny amounts and just filling this whole area in with wool. When it comes to doing the paw, we can just fold the wool over just to make a nice neat edge, and we're just going to place this for our paw and just felt that down. Now, as you can see, I've felted over my line now, so you don't necessarily need to mark everything off if you don't want to. If you want to preserve your line, then you'll just felt up to it and then do it afterwards. So you can leave the paws and do them later if you want to. I'm going to come down this leg now. And when we're meeting up to another area, like here we've got the head, I'm just felting up to it. So I tend to just take my wool and bring it all the way up, and you can sort of fold it down with your needle as you're working. And take another little bit, do this paw by just folding it to create a nice neat edge and then placing it on my work. I've probably got a little bit too much there. And then we're just going to fill in this middle section. Now, so that I can see the distinction, because I'm going to put some shading in later, I'm just very consciously tearing this in. I'm felting this in a way that I can still see the leg outline, and you can kind of make this more evident by just felting down the line like this. Or you can just not worry about it and add those details after, especially if you're not using an outline. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to come down to this little bit of the tummy, and for that I'm just going to kind of take a section. You can just give it a slight twist just to neaten those fibres up a little bit, and then just bring that round. To create that neat edge, and then just tuck all these fibres in by just felting. I can see some of this pink still showing through, so I'm just going to place some extra bits of wool to cover that over. There we go. And I'm going to just do the same for these other legs. I'm going to fill those in. Now, because these are a slightly smaller area, then it helps sometimes just to take a smaller amount of wool and to do that same little twist that we did down here, just to neaten all those fibres together. And then we can just place that where we want it and felt to cover our nice outline. And then to get that nice neat edge at the bottom, I'm just going to fold back the fibres like so. Add a little bit more by folding it over if you need to. And I'm just going to do the same on the other side, so taking a small amount, giving it a little twist. If you've got sort of too long a piece, you can fold it. If it's too small a piece, you can just pull and stretch and then twist. Cover your outline. And then if you want that neater edge, we can just fold that wool over again and just felt in our paw. And then the same for the tail. So we're just going to take small amounts, give it a little twist, and then we can felt this in. Now for this, I'm going to just go up to our line, because the tip of the tail we're going to do in the tan colour. So I'm just going to pull that up with my needle and stab. You can see we've got all this excess here, so there's a couple of things you can do with this. You can either bring it down, felt it into the body. You can turn it on its side so that it gives a nice neat edge. Can you see how that looks really neat? Or you can cut it off. I'm just going to fold it and just give that nice neat edge, really distinguishing where that tail comes. And make sure your line at the edge is all covered. I can just see a tiny bit of an outline just on this side of the body here, so I'm just going to take a very small amount, which you can twist just to neaten all those fibres, and then just bring it along there, like so. over just to kind of get rid of that edge slightly. Then I'm going to take my tan colour and I'm just going to add this back paw, which is going to be the tan, and also the little tip of the tail. I've taken way too much there. So I'm just going to take a little bit for this paw. So we're just going to take it, fold it to make it nice and neat. Or you can also, another way you can do it is just place the wool between your forefinger and your thumb and just kind of roll it into this little shape like so, and then we can put it there. So you can either fold the wool just by folding, or you can just roll it in your fingers, whichever you prefer, or try it and see which one you like best. And then we're just going to place that on the bottom. Giving a nice little tan paw. And then we're going to take another section, just twist that in our fingers again. Taking a bit much there. And we're just going to, with our fingers, our thumb and our forefinger, we're just going to kind of shape so that the edge twists slightly into a point, and then we're going to add that to the tip of our tail. You can do this with any details. So if you want to do different markings, if you've kind of got a dog that you want to copy yourself, then you can put a patch here or anywhere that you want, just doing the same outlines. Or if you've got kind of a longer stretch that you want to add, you can just stretch out the fibres and place it where you want. I know my dog has a little white patch kind of on her chest like this, so you could just put a little patch like that. Next, we're going to move up to our head. So for that, we're going to take a little bit more of our white first of all, and I'm going to try and preserve these outlines that we can see. So just taking small amounts, and I'm going to just start at the top here, coming round the edge, and just make sure that our outline of the head is covered and felt. Just by stabbing, take all your frustrations out on your work. And we're just going to cover all that area with our wool. I'm just going to come up to this patch that we marked. And then come down the side of it. If you need a little bit more structure to your wool, then you can just twist so that the fibres are kind of tucked in more. Depends what wool you're using. If you've got something that's kind of coarser and the fibres are a little bit more flyaway, that can help. And if you're struggling to twist it, you can just dip your fingers in a little bit of water to help do that. So I'm just going to felt over where the eye is, because I'll show you how you can add that on later, especially if you were doing this without an outline. And if you are doing this without an outline, I should have said, we can just do this in shapes. So I would just take a whole shape and just mould it into a nice oval like so, and then you can put your markings on top as we go. But as I've got my outline, I'm just going to tear little sections and just fill in, making sure I'm covering all my lines. I'm going to give that a little twist just to neaten it around that patch. And just fill in any of those patches if you can still see the outline or the background colour. I do want to preserve the outline of the nose, so I'm just going to leave that there. Also just see this outline on this side, so I'm just going to fill that in. And then just do the same up here. And then I'm going to do the same coming up this side. So I'm just going to take a small amount, pull, and then twist just to get a nice thin line. And then I'm going to rest it and come all the way up along the edge. And we're just going to stab this into place, making a nice little thin edge as we go. So most of this is going to be tan, but I'm just going to outline it with the white. And then I'm going to give us a nice white ear. So for that, we're just going to take a small amount, exactly like we did the tail and the legs. Just going to fold the edge over and just place it over and stab, making sure we've covered our line. You can adjust the shape as needed, so I'm just going to add a little bit more wool along the top there. Then for the other ear, we're just going to add some tan. So I'm going to take my tan colour, just a little bit less, and we're going to do exactly the same thing, folding it over and just placing that down on our work and stabbing around. Now you can stab the perimeter first just to make sure that you've covered all of your outline, and then you can come back and fill in the middle. Like so. And there we have our basic shape of our dog. So we're going to add our little patch on the eye now. So just in exactly the same way, we're just going to take small amounts of our wool, and I'm going to cover the eye, so I'll just place this completely over. If you want to preserve the eye, you can just do it in small amounts. And to create a neat edge, I'm just going to catch these fibres with my needle, tuck them in, and just bring this all the way around. And stab that in like so. The next thing that we're going to do then is put in our facial details. So I'm going to take the black now, just a tiny little amount of black, and we're going to do our nose. So just like I showed you with the tail and the paw, we can just roll this between our thumb and forefinger to create a nice little shape. Or you can fold it and twist it. It's entirely up to you. But this gives quite a nice effect for noses, so we can just twist it. Now, if you have done this in shapes, just simply adding the shapes as you go, or if you lost the outline for your nose, then just catch it with your needle and you can play around. You can maybe put the nose higher, you can put it much lower. It will affect which way the dog is looking. So if you put it really low down, then the dog's head is going to be tilted much further forward. If you put it up the top here, then it's going to be having it closer to the eyes. Also depending on what kind of character you want to kind of put across from your dog, bring the personality out. I'm just going to place this where I marked it and how I drew it out. And we're just going to stab all around. If you have got a fluffier type of wool or a coarser fibre, then you might just want to be careful to try and really roll that tightly perhaps dipping your fingers in water, just so that you've not got a lot of flyaway fibres contaminating the rest of your wool. In this case, black on white can be really difficult. So just stab all the way around just to help that. If you also haven't felted the white very firmly, then that can have more flyaway as well, fibres. So there's our little nose. Then I'm going to show you the eyes. Now if you completely lost them and you want to place them back where we marked them, you can just pop your template back on again, and you can simply just put your pen through and just make some little marks. I'm not really bothered about that, so I'm just going to show you where you can put them. And again, similar to the nose, just to choose your placement. So I'm going to take a tiny amount of wool and just kind of roughly get two amounts that are the same. We've got a tiny bit more on that side. So. And then we're just going to do the same, rolling in our fingers. And I've made these eyes sort of more oval, but if you want to do them round, that's fine. You can do however you want to. You just kind of shape it in your fingers. So you kind of do more of that movement if you want it to be more oval, or circular if you want it to be circular. And then whenever we've got our eye, we can kind of play around with where we want them. So I'm just going to place one there and then take the other one and kind of roughly decide where I'm going to want these. So I want this to be kind of at the edge here. So I'm going to put this one in the patch first of all. And to make these smaller, you can just stab around the perimeter, and you can see that sort of shrinks the wool and brings it in. And I'm going to felt in the middle and just stab around to change the shape too. Once you've got one kind of roughly where you want it, then you can check the placement of the other one. So just kind of be aware of how far away it is from the side of the face and from each other. But you can also make this really cute and have them kind of like really close together if you'd brought that one in, or quite far apart. You can bring them down, but you don't want them too high up. That's a lot of people will kind of make the mistake of putting the eyes too high up. So just kind of roughly place them halfway between the nose and the head, depending on where you've put your nose. And then I'm just going to stab that one into place too. If it all goes terribly and you're not happy with it, you can just use your needle or your broken needle to gently pull those fibres away and just lift them completely off. The great thing about needle felting is that you can just pull the wool off if you make a mistake and start again. And then you can just adjust the shape of these if you need to, just by going around the edge, like so. Okay, so then if you want to leave it there, you can. You've kind of got a finished dog, but I'm just going to show you how to add some shading just to bring it to life a little bit more. So for this, I'm going to take our colour that's a little bit lighter than our tan. If you don't have another colour, then you can just mix your tan with some white. So just take a tiny section of tan, tiny section of white. Place them in your fingers together and we can just tear those apart to blend the colours like so. And then you'll see that you've got kind of a lighter colour. But I'm just going to use this other colour that I've got for this. So I'm just going to take a small amount and we're going to just outline all the places where we want a little bit of shading now. So the first place I want to mark is just this outline of the legs. So I'm just going to take a very small amount and pull until we can get it nice and thin. And then we can just twist that in our fingers. You may want to dip your fingers in wool if you're in water if you're struggling. So just twisting, and then we can just outline this leg. So I'm just going to come up to where we marked and just felt in this little area of shading. And then I'm going to do the same again. So take another small amount of wool, pull, twist, and then place where we want it and just stab. then I'm going to take another little bit and I'm going to show you how to just do the same thing on the paws. So I'm just going to take a smaller amount, just twist that into a neat little shadow, and we're just going to mark off those outlines on our paws. If you're struggling with this, another thing that you could do is you can just take a substantial amount and just roll it and just place it on the paws so that the paws are a little bit darker. So not quite as dark as the shaded one, but you could just add a little bit of a contrasting colour to make your paws stand out. I'm just going to add this little bit of shading and then do the same again, so just twisting that in our fingers. Do one on that side and the same on our little back one as well. Take a little bit of a smaller amount. Like so. You can also place a little bit underneath your paws too if you want to. Which kind of makes your dog look a little bit more grounded. And then if you want to also add your shading on the face, we can just add this little bit going across. So I'm just going to take a small amount again, pull it apart, twist, and then we can just place this going in a little curve. So just use your finger to guide it where you want it. Just having a little curve like so. And then we can do the same for adding some little eyebrows. So just twist in your fingers. Just going to take a very small amount and just give a little bit of a shape up here. Just to give a little expression in your dog's face. And you can do the same on the other side too. Just be aware where you've put it and kind of try and match that up on the other side. It's going to look a little bit different because obviously we've got this patch over here. If you've got any flyaway fibres, you can just gently pull those off. And then I'm also just going to add a tiny little bit of shading underneath this ear too. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of that colour and just add it inside. Like so, just to lift it a little bit. And then the last thing to do, if you want to, is just go back and check again that you can't see any of the pink coming through. So I'm just going to tear off some tiny amounts again and just add that extra little detail, neaten everything up. And I almost forgot, the last thing is if you want to do some light flashes on your eyes. For this, you want to take the tiniest amount of wool. So I'm just going to tear that in half. And we're just going to do that circular motion again in our fingers. And then you'll get this tiny dot, which we're going to catch with our needle. And then you can just place this onto your eye. Very gently, just stab at the side. If it disappears when you're felting, then just do it again, add a little bit more. So I'm just going to roll in my fingers, catch with my needle. This one's a little bit bigger, and try and match it up so that they're on the same side. So that light source is coming the same way. And there we have our finished little cartoon dog, our Jack Russell. So I really hope that you've enjoyed felting along with that, and I can't wait to see your cartoon dogs. So if you would like to do any more of these, I've also got a cartoon dog workshop that you might be interested in, and I'll put a link in the description below. So there is our finished Jack Russell, our cartoon dog. I really hope that you've enjoyed that tutorial. It's been lovely to share it with you. Please tell me in the comments what you thought of it. And if you're not already a member of my Facebook group, I'll put a link in the description. Please head over, and I would love to see what you've created, your own cartoon dog. So please tag me, heartfelt.felting, in your pictures. And I will see you in the next tutorial. So happy felting. Bye for now.